report results much later because they're further out west. But as of now, it is looking like a slightly bleak night for the Harris campaign as we go past midnight, Tuesday night, going into Wednesday. Whether things will change by early Wednesday morning, we might get results blue wall states, but right now it is looking quite somber, quite bleak for the Harris campaign because they realize they came in with a single shot strategy, which was to win the 3 blue wall states and forget about the rest. But right now it is looking very difficult that Harris might be able to win all 3 of the blue wall states, which are a must win for her, which is why I think they need to go back to the drawing board and look at this whole strategy, because it's all about momentum. It's all about creating the perception that your candidate is the one who is on the winning side. And if you create that perception, that can't be just restricted to a certain set of states in the north or a certain set of states in the south, which is why you look at the 2020 result, Biden won 3 states in the north and 3 states in the south. So it was a big deal that he managed to flip 6 out of 7 battleground states. Today, Kamala Harris, if she's lucky, might win 1 or 2 out of the 7 battleground states. And that is, in effect, where she may have lost this election, or at least is likely to lose this election.
Wait, Zaka, do you think what went wrong for Kamala Harris had a lot to do with the last leg of Biden's presidency? Probably she's now being made a fall guy because she was got in the very last minute because he was not able to go through with his presidency. A lot of Democrats really wanting him to step down, and that also is not really working in favor of Kamala Harris. Or for that, or do you think it is the fact that she is a woman candidate? We'd seen what had happened in the favor of Hillary Clinton in 2016. Do you see any kind of equating of the Harris's campaign when it is about the 2016 Clinton campaign?
No, so I think the first part is certainly right. Joe Biden was extremely unpopular. I think his approval ratings were probably as bad as George W. Bush's approval ratings were when he left office. And Biden simply, did not give enough time, I reckon, for Kamala Harris as the Democratic challenger to try and put up a fight against Donald Trump. Donald Trump also very cleverly tied both Biden and Harris together to the same ticket. So he basically made the case to the American people that Kamala Harris just can't wash away her responsibility from the mess that America finds itself in, or at least a large majority of the voters seem to find America in a bit of a mess. They don't think that their economic condition has improved in the last 4 years. They don't think America should be involved in all of these wars that are going on. And Trump and his team very, very astutely linked Kamala Harris to the Biden ticket, to the Biden record. Everybody knows in the US and the way the US system is, the vice president has very little role compared to what the president does. Unfortunately for Kamala Harris, she was caught in this whole difficult situation where on the one hand, she didn't want Biden's sort of tarnished legacy record on herself, and yet at the same time, she couldn't be seen as completely distancing herself. That would have been seen as completely, dropping Biden like a hot potato, which she could have ill afforded to, because at the end of the day, she only became the Democratic nominee because Biden dropped out.
Yes.
And, in competitive politics, nominees usually do not drop out. Biden did so. He was maybe forced to do so after the CNN debate, after his performance, which was completely off the park. It just didn't measure up to the standard required, as we are hearing a new sort of wave here of the crowd. I guess it's one of the states being projected for Kamala Harris.
It's Kamala Harris winning Virginia, Zaka. That's what we are learning. That's the latest projection by CNN, as Kamala Harris has in fact won Virginia. That's an important update that we are getting there, Zaka.
And I guess the noise is because we are on the border of Virginia. We're in Washington, D.C. This is the tri-state area. It's Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Virginia was a blue state. In fact, all the way from Hillary Clinton, and then Biden won it by a big margin, I think about 10 percentage points last time around. I don't know the margin by which CNN is projecting Kamala Harris will win Virginia, but the very fact that Virginia was in play for some time this evening is in itself, I think, a testament to the fact that Trump is more popular than, the media would admit, or pollsters would be able to find out, or for that matter, his supporters themselves would admit to other people, including to pollsters. So I think the fact that Trump, this is his third presidential campaign, this is his third presidential bid. He spoke to reporters earlier this morning after casting his vote, and he said this was perhaps the most successful campaign that he ran. And if he wins tonight, and he looks poised to win tonight, then he would get a second term at the White House. And many say, second term is all about defining your legacy. It's the history-setting term. And Trump, from whatever we've seen or whatever he has outlined, wants to do a complete overhaul of the government machinery. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I know that the blue wall states are still very much in play. It is very much possible that we wake up tomorrow morning and realize, because a lot of these urban centers in Philadelphia, in Milwaukee and Madison in Wisconsin, in Detroit, in Michigan, in Grand Rapids in Michigan, are all still having a lot of outstanding vote. So it's entirely possible we wake up in the morning and realize that all of these three states have been won by Kamala Harris. But is that probable? Is that likely? I don't see that happening, given what we've seen in Georgia, given what we've seen in North Carolina, and given what we're seeing right now in both Pennsylvania and in Wisconsin, where two big blue battleground states where Kamala Harris, it's a must-win for her.
Yes.
She's trailing Trump in both of those states right now.
Right, Zaka, thank you so much for that update. But right now, some amount of good news that's coming in for Camp Harris, and that is she winning Virginia and also Hawaii. And in fact, in Virginia, she in fact has won by a margin of over 2 lakh votes. An important update there. While we take a look at all of that, let's also take a look at what CNN is further projecting as far as these US polls are concerned.
You go there in 2024. So that's the one, it's just a dramatic change when you come here. And so Donald Trump is remaking the map again at the moment. And the question is there any way for Harris to come back? Again, we've given Donald Trump North Carolina. So let's see where we are in Georgia. If Donald Trump also carries Georgia, the vice president cannot afford to lose Pennsylvania. Yes, Nevada's out there, Arizona's out there, Michigan and Wisconsin are out there. 19. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So can she come back in Georgia to stop that from happening? She's limiting her. If he wins Georgia, her path is so limited. So it's 118,000 votes right now in a state decided 4 years ago by 11,700 votes. Donald Trump with 93%, that's an important number, of the vote counted is ahead by nearly 120,000 votes. So you're looking, this is where they would have to be. You can pick up votes elsewhere, but that's where most of the votes are. That's close to half of the state population, right in Atlanta, in the metropolitan area around it. So what's out there? Are there live outstanding votes out there? Well, let's take a look. The answer is yes. Let me get rid of the coloring so you don't have to see that. The answer is yes, they're out there. You're at the point now where you're talking about drawing to an inside straight flush, essentially. You need these votes to come in overwhelming numbers for you. But you do see there's the mathematical possibility. This is why the Harris campaign is on the phone. This is why I assume Donald Trump has not come out yet to say anything, because he's hoping that this one comes off the board as well. You're looking at the math right there. It's possible. So we're waiting for more votes in Georgia. So then you come up, Jake, and we'll look at the blue wall states in a minute to see if any of the math is changing. But if you look at the map right now, you would so much rather be Donald Trump than the vice president.
All right, and we have a projection, John. CNN can project that Kamala Harris will win the Commonwealth of Virginia. Commonwealth of Virginia, with its 13 electoral votes, will go to the Democrat Vice President Kamala Harris. What does that mean for the electoral math? Let's take a look. With 270 electoral votes needed to win, Donald Trump is only 40 behind that with 230. Kamala Harris has 182 electoral votes. Let's bring you a key race alert. Where are we with all the states that we have not projected yet? Pennsylvania, Donald Trump in the lead. 51.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris, 47.6% of the vote. Donald Trump has a more than 213,000 vote lead over her with 84% of the estimated vote in from Pennsylvania. In battleground Michigan, Donald Trump up there, 51.2% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 47% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 107,294 vote lead over Harris. But there's still about 55% of the vote that has not been counted in Michigan. A lot of votes to count in Michigan. Wisconsin now, Donald Trump 51% of the vote, Kamala Harris 47.4%. Donald Trump with a more than 92,000 vote lead over Harris. That's with more than 3/4 of the votes counted in Wisconsin, 77% of the vote. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump up 50.7% to Harris's 48.4%. Donald Trump with a 118,838 vote lead over Harris, with 93% of the estimated vote in. In battleground Arizona, Donald Trump up 49.8% to Harris's 49.3%. Donald Trump with a 9,600 plus vote lead. That's with slightly more than half of the vote counted in Arizona, 52%. In Nevada, Donald Trump up 73% to Harris's 26.2% of the vote. Donald Trump with an almost 11,000 vote lead. But that is, again, with only 2% of the estimated vote in Nevada counted. Still a lot of votes to count in Nevada. John?
So, Jake, let's look at, right now you're looking at the big map and you're seeing all that red. Yes, Virginia, we just projected for the vice president. That one's blue. I'll take a closer look in a minute at that one. But you're looking at the blue wall states. Essentially, Harris's only path is to come back in these 3 states right there. I can give you a conceivable possibility where she only has to come back in 2 of them, but she has to come back in all 3 of them to have a reasonable path to 270 electoral votes. And it's a problem at the moment, 168,000 votes. I'm told more votes just recently came in Philadelphia, and indeed they did. So now you're up to 76% estimate. These can change a little bit as more votes come in. But you see that, the vice president opening a healthy lead in Philadelphia, which is a building block of a Democratic win in Pennsylvania. The question is it enough? I just showed you Trump was leading. So 78%, 477,000 votes. If you go back 4 years ago, it's 81%, and it's 603,000 votes. Remember that, 81 and 603. 78 and 477. Can she move both numbers up when we get the final quarter of the vote? That's the challenge, because you need that math, forgive me, to overcome that. 168,000 votes in a state that was decided by 80,000 votes 4 years ago and 40,000 votes 4 years before that. That is a big lead in a tight state like Pennsylvania with 85% of the vote. So you're saying, is it just Philadelphia and the suburbs where there are outstanding votes? Again, if you're joining us late, the larger the circle, the more votes that are still outstanding to be counted, the color, the way the candidate, who's winning in that area at the moment. And so you still do right here, Philadelphia, Delaware County, Chester County, Montgomery County. There's still some math to be done there. A little bit out there in Allegheny County, where we talked to Brian Todd early in the night. A little bit up in Erie County, which is a swing county. Tends to be very close, though. So let's come back and look at this as we come through it. Number one, there are bellwether counties in Pennsylvania. Northampton is one of them, and Trump is winning with 52% of the vote right now. This county usually picks the winner in the state. As I say that, I'll say its twin is Erie, way over here. It's twin, then for Trump, then for Biden. Erie and Northampton, 2 of the 25 counties that did that. At the moment, the vice president is leading in Erie County. In the last campaign, it was Vigo County, Indiana. Their streak of picking the winner went off the board. We'll see if the 2 swing counties in Pennsylvania split as this election goes through. But if you're looking at this map right now,
of absentee ballots outstanding, but the final outstanding votes in Detroit, big part of Wayne County. So when that truck comes through the door, they begin to tabulate those. That gets us to the point where they're going to have, in effect, all the votes they need to count and get to that point where they're going to be ready to report those final figures. We were told it could be in the next few minutes. We'll be watching. We'll report back when it happens. But that could be the point when you get that big batch reported publicly.
All right, Jim Sciutto in Detroit, Wayne County. And you were noting that we don't have Wayne County to the granular level, that we can't see Dearborn and other places where there were a lot of uncommitted votes during the Democratic primary. But just to remind our viewers, during the Democratic primaries, as a protest of President Biden's support for the Netanyahu government of Israel and its war on Hamas in Gaza, 100,000 Democrats voted uncommitted, and presumably most of them as a protest vote against Biden for that issue.
Yes, absolutely. And most of them were located here in Wayne County. Again, you have Detroit, progressive city, but also Hamtramck and Dearborn, just to the north and to the west. Large pockets, Arab American communities there that are very angry at the White House. And then the next one, you come out here, again, this is Washtenaw County, where I've been 4 times, maybe I think 4 times, maybe 5 times, no 4, in this election, to go to the University of Michigan and talk to people out there. And again, we're at 71% right now, so the numbers can change, but she's at 66%. This is Ann Arbor, University of Michigan. Again, you have a big college campus. It tends to be a very liberal pocket, progressive pocket. You're saying, wow, 65% of the vote, 66 if you round up, that's great.
Oh my God.
73%. And the math, 157,000 to 103. Well, again, we got 30% of the votes still to come in, and maybe the percentages change as well. Maybe all the votes that are out are from the campus, and and it juices up the number a little bit. But if you're looking at that now, you're underperforming the President of the United States, and Donald Trump's at 32% and 26%. I mean, if that gap holds, and if his improvement like that holds, I'm sorry, go ahead. That's a big deal, though.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things you hear from the Arab American and Muslim American community in places like Michigan is not that they were going to vote for Donald Trump,
right,
but they either were not going to vote or they were going to vote for Jill Stein,
right,
or Cornel West. I'm not sure if Cornel West is on the ballot in Michigan, but I mean, these numbers don't add up to 100 here,
right,
so I'm guessing that there is a better than, my guess would be, educated guess would be, there's going to be a better than average showing for Jill Stein in Michigan than in other states.
Right, and she worked it hard. She was out there quite a bit. Every trip I was out there, you saw activity. Either she was in the state or had just been in the state.
Yeah. So just to explain it. Now, one of the other things I heard about people talking about Michigan is everybody in the media, all you talk about is the Arab American, Muslim American vote, but really the issue in terms of a big sizable, bigger chunk of votes is white working class voters, union voters, because the
15%. So, but that if he's even above 30, right? Anything he's above 30 is an improvement for him. And so we can't see it all on this map. We have to get more granular. But Detroit, is he doing better? Is Trump doing better with the black vote? Or where is overall turnout maybe down a little bit from 2020? That's a big question, too. And then here, you have Hamtramck and you have Dearborn. They're not on the map, but they're right here. Those are 2 very important pockets of Arab American voters that were 200,000 plus voted for Joe Biden 4 years ago. We don't know. We don't have that granular detail just yet, but that was one of the big questions in the campaign. Spent a lot of time on my trips at Wayne State campus, younger voters, a lot of Arab and Muslim students at Wayne State, and a lot of young progressive students at Wayne State. Did they lose the youth vote there? A lot of the questions. Now, I'm raising questions that we'll answer in more detail tomorrow and next week and the week after that when we have final results. But if you're 158,000 votes ahead, only halfway in Michigan, I mean, I hate to say it, but like you're looking at this and like that's the best of the 3 blue wall states.
Let's go to Wayne County right now. Let's go to Detroit where we find Jim Sciutto, who has an update on the vote count there. Jim?
Jake, there have been a lot of questions and some consternation as to why we haven't seen more data from Wayne County yet. And I just spoke with the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, and we believe we have the answer here. I asked her quite specifically, and she said the reason is that Wayne County, in part, given all the scrutiny on this county as it impacts the outcome of the election in this state, is not reporting partial results. It's waiting until it has either all or the vast majority of those results in before it, in effect, gives that batch and makes it public. And I just want to highlight one point that's going to happen in the next hour, perhaps even the next few minutes. A nondescript U-Haul van is going to drive in one of these doors behind me here with the last remaining outstanding absentee ballots in Detroit, part of Wayne County, about 4,000 we expect. That's the final batch, not just, we are told, of absentee ballots outstanding, but the final outstanding votes in Detroit, big part of Wayne County. So when that truck comes through the door, they begin to tabulate those. That gets us to the point where they're going to have, in effect, all the votes they need to count and get to that point where they're going to be ready to report those final figures. We were told it could be in the next few minutes. We'll be watching. We'll report back when it happens. But that could be the point when you get that big batch reported publicly.
All right, Jim Sciutto in Detroit, Wayne County. And you were noting that we don't have Wayne County to the granular level, that we can't see Dearborn and other places where there were a lot of uncommitted votes during the Democratic primary. But just to remind our viewers, during the Democratic primaries, as a protest of President Biden's support for the Netanyahu government of Israel and its war on Hamas in Gaza, 100,000 Democrats voted uncommitted,
And
we presumably most of them as a protest vote against Biden for that issue.
Yes, absolutely. And most of them were located here in Wayne County. Again, you have Detroit, progressive city, but also Hamtramck and Dearborn, just to the north and to the west. Large pockets, Arab American communities there that are very angry at the White House. And then the next one, you come out here again. This is Washtenaw County, where I've been 4 times, maybe 4 times, maybe 5 times, no 4, in this election to go to the University of Michigan and talk to people out there. And again, we're at 71% right now, so the numbers can change. But she's at 66%. This is Ann Arbor, University of Michigan. Again, you have a big college campus. It tends to be a very liberal pocket, progressive pocket. You're saying, wow, 65% of the vote, 66 if you round up, that's great.
Oh my God.
73%. And the math, 157,000, to 103. Well, again, we got 30% of the votes still to come in, and maybe the percentages change as well. Maybe all the votes that are out are from the campus, and and it juices up the number a little bit. But if you're looking at that now, you're underperforming the President of the United States, and Donald Trump's at 32%. At 26%. That's if that gap holds and if his improvement like that holds, I'm sorry, go ahead. That's a big deal, though.
Well, I was just going to say one of the things you hear from the Arab American and Muslim American community in places like Michigan is not that they were going to vote for Donald Trump,
right,
but they either were not going to vote or they were going to vote for Jill Stein,
right,
or Cornel West. I'm not sure if Cornel West is on the ballot in Michigan, but these numbers don't add up to 100 here, right, so I'm guessing that there is a better than, my guess would be, educated guess would be, there's going to be a better than average showing for Jill Stein in Michigan than in other states.
Right, and she worked it hard. She was out there quite a bit. Every trip I was out there, you saw activity. Either she was in the state or had just been in the state.
Yeah. So just to explain it. Now, one of the other things I heard about people talking about Michigan is everybody in the media, all you talk about is the Arab American, Muslim American vote, but really the issue in terms of a big sizable, bigger chunk of votes is white working class voters, union voters, because the Trump campaign ran ads slamming Harris's position on electric vehicles, EVs, and that is actually going to be more significant ultimately, that was, this is just their projection, than the Arab American, Muslim American vote. Is there any way we can gauge that, how well or poorly she did compared to Biden when it comes to white, non-college educated union voters?
David would have the exit polls. We could look at union households. That's a question on the exit polls. I can show you some counties where we were. 3 times I went out there to talk to union auto worker groups. And I want to just say this up front. There are more automobile manufacturing jobs in the United States today than at any point during the Trump presidency. I repeat, there are more auto manufacturing jobs in the United States today than at any point in the Trump presidency. However, the EV debate is a debate. Stellantis just laid off 1,100 people, right, and in part because they say they have electric vehicles sitting on the lot. The union says that's BS. It's corporate greed. They're not keeping their word. But this is a conversation. Are they going too fast? At a minimum, are they going too fast? There are some auto workers who say, why are you forcing this on us? There are others saying the infrastructure is not in place. Culturally, people aren't ready for them. Why are you going so fast? So one of the places you'll find that is right here in Macomb County. We met Joseph Knowles, just laid off from Stellantis, a black union auto worker. No one in his family had ever voted Republican for president. He was voting for Donald Trump. He said everybody in his family was mad at him. This is where you find them right here. Bill Govier is another Ford worker in Macomb County who wanted to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. When he dropped out and backed Trump, Bill Govier said, that's great. I love them both. And he voted for Trump a 3rd time. So some of them have been in Trump's camp, like a Bill Govier. Joseph Knowles is a +1, voted Democrat all his life, right? So there, Macomb County, we got a long way to go here, 36%. But Trump at 58, when you round that up, Trump at 53 right there. So again, we'll see if that sustains itself.
Yeah.
And the Biden number at 45, the Harris very at 40. If that's the number at the end, then it's very hard.
Well,
to
there
see
you go,
and
you can see why, not all of that change is from that one issue or that one demographic I described, but that is quite significant if it holds. Let's go to Pamela Brown at the voting desk. Let's jump to Wisconsin if we could, because Pamela wants to talk about Milwaukee and what's going on there. Pamela?
Yeah, I've been talking to officials there, Milwaukee County as well as the city. Let's look at Milwaukee County right now. A large portion of the vote that remains is from Milwaukee City itself. This is the largest county. This is the largest city in Wisconsin. According to a source in Milwaukee County, 9 out of 19 municipalities are completely reported. And the source also says that the county clerk there expects all results from Milwaukee County to be reported between 2 and 4 a.m. tonight, Central Time. So these results coming in overnight there from Milwaukee County. That is the expectation. Now, let's dive in here to the Milwaukee City. I just spoke to an official there. Milwaukee City has 27,724 mail-in ballots left to be counted so far. In addition, officials are still waiting for results from 4 wards still, and those would be the day of votes. So from election day. So there's still quite a bit to go to count tonight there in Milwaukee City. For context, 69% went for Biden in 2020. And as I mentioned, this is the largest county in Wisconsin. So we're keeping a close eye on this.
All right, Pamela, thanks so much. Let's take a look at Wisconsin as long as Pamela drove us here.
So a critical point she makes, 4 wards in the city of Milwaukee still haven't reported their election day votes. And again, anecdotally, just texting people out in the state, they said turnout was good. You know, they weren't saying great or gangbusters, they were saying good. So we wait, you wait. But again, so we're waiting for the city. This is Milwaukee plus the suburbs around it. The county is what you see here. But she's at 66% and Joe Biden's at 69%. So when those city of Milwaukee votes come in, that not only does that percentage need to move, but that math needs to change quite significantly if you're trying to make up that. Now, 96,000. You know, that's better than 150,000, right? Simple math, people. You know, we always say politics can be very complicated. Sometimes it comes down to basic arithmetic. Are there enough votes still out there to overcome a 96,000 vote lead? And, you know, so if Pam says 4 big wards are still out in Milwaukee City and there's a little bit more in Milwaukee County, the answer is maybe, right? Again, you're getting to the point where you're drawing to an inside straight flush, but maybe. So then you look around in other Democratic areas, and again, Eau Claire, she's getting 55% of the vote. I just want to compare that.
Same thing.
That's okay, yeah. A little better maybe, but it's not a ton of. It's just not a ton of people there. Then you come down to La Crosse. You're looking at the blue areas and you're saying, is there anything left? Not much left, right? It's not a huge swing anyway. So even if you pick up some votes, you're not picking up a ton there. So if you're looking at this map now, I just want to check what was our percentage here? 95% in Dane County, and these other blue counties around it. I'll hit them for you. You just see they're pretty small population-wise. I mean, not tiny, but again, you're at 95% Rock County, 95% Greene County. 92% Lafayette County. That one is a little bit smaller. So again, the math's getting really hard if you're trying to figure out can Harris come back in Wisconsin. And I would say simply that it comes down to that, and those Milwaukee precincts that are out better be gangbusters.
May I do a personal prerogative? May I see the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? We haven't checked in there in a while, and that's obviously a place near and dear to my heart. And I have questions about it. One of them is Allentown, which is blue right now. Allentown, the city of Allentown is 54% Latino, 54%, and Pennsylvania, as we've discussed, has the 3rd largest Puerto Rican population on the mainland, behind only New York and New York and Florida. So my question is, how is she doing in this Latino area compared to Joe Biden 4 years ago?
Again, cannot go granular just into the city of Allentown, but you can look at Lehigh County here, right? And I can already tell you, 51 to 48, if you're the Trump campaign, sure, you'd like to win it. But you're looking at 48% in Lehigh County, and you're feeling pretty good because you were 46 last time. Right? And again, within a battleground state, you think margins within the margins, the battlegrounds within the battlegrounds. So you know, Joe Biden at 53% with 98,000 votes, the vice president at 50% with 93,000 votes. Now, we're not completely done there, but that 5,000 votes makes a big difference. It just does, right? So and that's there, right? So then you come out here and you come up, let's just move on up, right? Carbon County, look at this, Trump getting 73% of the vote. You know, he's improved. That's one of the places he's overperformed himself. And then you move up here, this is Lackawanna County, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Joe Biden's hometown. It's a tough, competitive blue-collar area, but 51 to 48 now, 54 to 45.
And if that movement of 4%,
right,
can be the whole thing.
It's a couple thousand votes here. It's a couple thousand votes there. I want to show you something.
By the way,
else.
can I just point out
Erie has now flipped.
Erie, which has always voted with the presidential victor in Pennsylvania and nationally, is now with Trump.
Has flipped, and let's see where the turnout is there. Again, it's one of the 25. They're at 95%. It's very close, but it's always very close. So you see Erie County very close there, and I just want to come across the state. Northampton County. So you're on the your Buffalo, New York border, and here's New Jersey here. You've got 52 to 47 there. Not done yet, but the 2 multi-pivot counties, twice for Obama, then for Trump, then for Biden, At the moment, they're going back to Trump. I just want to show one more thing we haven't shown tonight. I just want to bring this up and bring this out. It's not here. It is here. No, it is here. Sorry. I will figure this out eventually. I promise you. I just have too many gizmos. Just want to come in here. Come on. And show you this. So let's go out nationally first. Everyone's been talking all night long about the headwinds. There'll be a lot of questions asked about this after the fact. This is not a good environment for any incumbent. Kamala Harris is the incumbent vice president. What this shows you is not votes. This shows you the darker the county, the more that county has been hit by inflation. Meaning, the darker the county, the more cost of living, energy prices, gas prices, housing prices in a lot of places have outpaced wage increases. Right? Try to find me. See the green?
Yeah, what does that mean? That's
the county where your wages have outpaced inflations. You can use a hand. You will fill one hand. In the more than 4,000 counties and townships in the United States, you use one hand to fill out the counties where wages have outpaced inflation.
So can I make two observations?
So I just want to come back into your Commonwealth.
Oh my goodness!
I want to come back into your Commonwealth. The darker the county, the more punishing, the more inflation has outpaced your wages, your cost of living. And just look. I mean, the fact that she's doing as well in the suburbs is a testament to the Democratic strength there. But you see in these other places, it's just that was the headwind, and that came up. I can tell you, I was on the road for 15 months, and that came up from the first trip to the last trip. Even for people voting for Harris, even for people gladly and proudly voting for Harris, we're saying it still sucks when I go to the grocery store.
Yeah, and that's also why the right track, wrong track numbers are 75% wrong track, 25, but the election's not 75%, 25, because there are people who think it's wrong track, but they're still going to vote for the Democrat. Yet, this is difficult to fight against if you're the incumbent.
That's North Carolina, especially you're trying to win back.
Look at all the dark colors in Arizona and Nevada.
Oh, it gets worse as you go west. That's what I was going to say. Then you're in Georgia. Look, this is the Atlanta suburbs, right? If she loses just a little tiny bit, right? And look down here. These are working class people, right? And then you're absolutely right. Then you come out here and you look at in Arizona. That's Maricopa County. That's the largest county. Up here is usually Democratic area.
He's winning Maricopa County.
He is at the, well, that's just the, let's see. Let's come up there. It's close. That one's close still at half and half as you bring that out. And then you come here. This to me, of all the visits, you want to talk a place that still has the COVID body bruise.
Yep.
Because unemployment hit 30%, twice the national average.
Tourism.
And then the cost of living. I mean, look at it right there where, again, the darker the county, the more. And out here, it's housing more than anything. Housing in Vegas, a lot of people rent. There's not a lot of land to build new houses, so the rents go up. And once the COVID moratorium on rent increases went up, rents went up through the chutes. And a lot of the working class people out there complaining about that.
So I wasn't done with Pennsylvania,
well, we'll go back.
But hold on, because Pamela. No, go to Pennsylvania because Pamela's. I'm gonna throw it to Pamela. She has some information on Georgia. If you could. There you go. Pamela, what do you got for us in Georgia?
This is important information in Georgia. I'm getting from Gabriel Sterling, the top election official there. The margin right now in Georgia is 118,000 votes, right? 100,000 votes are outstanding right now. This is what I'm being told from Gabriel Sterling. Now, he says the split will go marginally for Harris. So let's break down what we know about where some of that outstanding vote is. Chatham. 40,000 outstanding, I'm told. This is a county that went to Biden in 2020. Carroll, outstanding, 18,000. This is a county that went to Trump in 2020. And then you have the blue counties of DeKalb and Fulton. DeKalb has 3,000 outstanding ballots. Fulton has 2,000 outstanding ballots. Again, just to recap, tight margin, 118,000, 100,000 votes still out in Georgia. And Gabriel Sterling says it's the split coming from that will be marginally, his prediction is for Harris. But this is what the data coming in is showing right now. Back to you.
John, do you have any questions for Pamela?
You say the total outstanding votes is 100,000?
He said 100,000 votes out. Yep.
Well,
and so I just gave you a little snapshot of where some of those places are. Chatham, Carroll, I asked, when are we going to find out these results from these counties? He did not have a timeline exactly for that, but hopefully soon.
But the significance, obviously, that Donald Trump right now has a margin of 118,838 votes, and you're saying there's 100,000 left.
If he's being literal, sometimes 100,000, they're getting calls from counties and they say 20,000, it's really 22.
Right.
They say 30,000, it could be 33.
John,
but if he's
can I just jump in?
Yes, please.
Actually, we asked about how do you know these numbers, and actually by law, they have to have it, the actual numbers. So I understand your point, but I think they do have more precise numbers based on what the law requires.
Interesting.
Well, then that math sends a shockwave through the Harris campaign.
Yeah.
If that is literal, just even if she won them all, if there's 100,000 left,
Right.
and she won them all, and she won't, he's 118,000
She
votes
said
ahead.
marginally for Harris, which means probably like 53-47 or something along those lines. Interesting. Well, we'll have the decision desk talk to the people in Georgia. Can I go back to Pennsylvania just for 1 second? I want to look at Philly for a second because it was so important. It's so important for every Democrat to drive up the margins here. Harris is with 78% reporting. Harris is at 78.1% to Donald Trump's 20%. We've already talked about this. This is a better performance by Donald Trump than in 2020 and also in 2016.
So watch where he is, right? You can look at it either way. He was at 18%. Now he's above 20%. If we go all the way back in time, 21 the state, he was at 15%. The third-party candidates mattered a little bit there, more statewide than they did in Philadelphia, but a little bit. So look at, you just track Donald Trump in Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia, 15% and 108,000 votes in 2016. 18%, 132,000 votes in 2020. We're not quite done in 2024, but it's a lower vote count.
It's the margins.
Because we're not at 100 yet, it's down.
Yeah.
If he keeps that number, he's got that's going to pass the last one. Absolutely. The margins, again, she's at 78%. And there are some places that are swing counties, and you're fighting to move them. When you're starting a plan to run for president, and you know how deep Trump's support is across Pennsylvania, you know you have to do it here. You just have, it's math. It's math. I mean, 30% of the state population lives right here.
Yep.
Right here. So if you're going to offset that, you just got to run it up. You just got to run it up here. And she's at 78%. He was at 81%. This will be the conversation. If this plays out the way it's going right now, this will be the conversation in the Democratic Party, is what's happening in urban America, both in terms of the numbers, the turnout, the math, and the percentages.
So I read this in an exit poll, and whoever is listening from the exit poll desk, Challian or whoever, if I get this wrong or if there's been an updated number, please let me know. But it said black men in Pennsylvania, in 2020, 10% went for Trump. In 2024, 25% went for Trump. Black men in Pennsylvania more than doubled for Trump.
Well, if that number's true, I mean, after every election, you have the conversation, right? After 2016, it was what's happening to Democrats. I mean, it was already happening, but Trump put on steroids the Democrats' problem with white working-class people who work with their hands. And now I would say, take the white out of that. Take the white out of that.
It's just about working-class people.
The gains among black men, the gains among Latino men, are among people who work with their hands, who have been punished, the conversations that strike you from 15 months on the road is, I could afford a new car, but then if any prices go up, I can't take that loan. Like I cannot put, there's no way. So you're asking your mechanic, can I keep this thing on the road for a little bit longer? And your Christmas time, you're telling your kids you're getting one gift, not two. Or we were going to try to go to Disneyland, but we're not this year.
Yeah.
We're going to go to the amusement park, that's a couple hours away by car, but we're not going to Disneyland or some big thing like that. These are the conversations you're having in state after state after state.
Guys are on the key 7 swing states, and right now what CNN is projecting, all of them seem to be going to the Republicans. In fact, the 3 blue wall states also are right now tilting in favor of Donald Trump. Which way will it swing? Because a lot of those votes are yet to be counted, especially in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin. We are keeping an eye on that. Let me take this across to James Russell, who's Associate Professor, Department of National Affairs, who's joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Russell, thank you so much. Let's talk about the blue wall states initially that have not really been working well for Kamala Harris. Do you see her path to victory campaign really going all wrong when she was concentrating on just these blue wall states?
Well, it's difficult to say, of course, but the short answer is that this offered her the only path available, I think. I mean, you can see from the map of America, of red state America, that the key for any Democratic candidate is the eastern seaboard, the western states, and the blue wall states in the middle. And this really offered her the only chance to replicate, of course, what Biden did 4 years ago. So I don't think you can question her emphasis on trying to win these states. And the problem being, of course, as the CNN reporters have been telling us all night,
Yes.
Harris has simply been underperforming what Biden did 4 years ago, and Trump has done better. Erie County, for example, in Pennsylvania, which is this sort of mixed county up in that's sort of emblematic of the way things have been going for Trump over the evening in states like North Carolina and Georgia and Michigan.
And he has won
So,
Georgia, Mr. Russell. We are learning that this is the
yeah.
latest projection by CNN that Trump, in fact, has taken Georgia.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think the election at this point is effectively over. I mean, of course, we haven't gotten to a victory yet, but it looks almost certain that Trump is going to be returning to the White House.
So you wouldn't say that this is still very early to call because you are putting it out there in black and white that it is a Trump victory after all that we are looking at, even though there are about so many votes that are yet left to be counted, especially in these blue wall states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Yes, it's true, but Harris has to win every single one of these states, and it doesn't look like she's going to. For example, she's too far behind, I would think, in Pennsylvania, and she's having problems in Michigan and Wisconsin, and Trump just has to win one of these at this point. And I think the math is against a Harris victory at this point. And I think that's the lesson of the evening, which is that Trump has outperformed what the polls suggested he was going to do, and like 8 years ago, he's basically replicated a lot of his performance from 8 years ago when he was running against Hillary Clinton, winning in these places like Pennsylvania, for example, which have been close but have gone Democratic in most of the elections. So I think it looks pretty bleak for the Harris campaign at this point.
And Mr. Russell, even that race card that Kamala Harris sort of was playing and, probably leading with her African-American heritage really is not really working for her, because if we specifically talk about Pennsylvania, and we were just hearing our CNN colleagues, and they were talking about how the black men in Pennsylvania have really doubled as a vote bank for Donald Trump in Pennsylvania.
I think this has been an issue for the Democrats for the last couple of months, and they've done in their own internal polling that they were showing this, and so they sent out Barack Obama, for example, to go into the black areas and lecture the black men about voting for Kamala. But the fact also is it's not just black men; it's also white men. The reality, I think, of the politics in America today is that a majority of the voters are not ready to send a woman into the presidency. And I'm ashamed to say that as an American, but I think this worked against her. I think it motivated male voters to come out and vote against her. And I think it's awful to say, but again, the Democrats were focusing upon this a couple of months ago because their internal polling numbers about black men. Biden was carried 90% of black male votes 4 years ago, and these kinds of things, as I said, in elections that are going to be this close as they are this time around, they've worked against Harris, which is a great sadness, but there we are.
Right, James Russell, stay on with us and hold that thought over there. Let's go back to CNN and see what the latest projections now are learning of.
It is election night in America, and let us bring you back to where we are right now with 270 electoral votes needed to win. Donald Trump is in the lead with 246. Kamala Harris is at 182. There are still 5 battleground states that remain uncalled by CNN. Let us go and look at where they are. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump in the lead with 50.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 48.1% of the vote. Donald Trump has a more than 165,000 vote lead. Let's go to Kamala Harris headquarters right now. Let's listen in.
Good evening, HU. I want to say good evening to all of the Harris campaign, the campaign family, thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in the promise of America. Votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the Vice President tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
Cedric Richmond, top advisor to Kamala Harris, used to be top advisor to Joe Biden in the White House, basically telling people at Howard University, where Vice President Kamala Harris was going to have her celebration party, theoretically, that Kamala Harris is not going to come out tonight. She will come out tomorrow and address the nation, which I guess is what we could expect, given the fact that we're not going to know definitively this evening the results.
If you've ever been to Howard University when there's a big crowd, that is not the sound of a big crowd there. That is not a celebratory mood, and I think that was a tough kind of coming out conversation for Cedric Richmond.
Yeah, I mean, it's the 2024 version of the Javits Center at this time. I'm not saying that it's going to end that way, but at this time, it's feeling like it's too early, and the senior person comes out and says, everybody go home and we'll see what happens, and we will see what happens when we get the rest of the votes. But
in the immortal words of Bob Dylan, you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind is blowing.
Right.
And this very much felt, I mean, you know, we talked before about whether this felt more like 2020 or 2016. This felt so much like the Javits Center, and specifically her campaign chairman, John Podesta, came out at almost exactly this same point 8 years ago and made almost exactly that same speech. And the next day, Hillary Clinton came out and conceded. Now, again, he is not at 270 yet. She has not lost this race, but you don't have to be a weatherman.
Right. And just to go over where we are right now, so there are 7 battleground states, and we have called, CNN has called, projected that Donald Trump will win 2 of them, North Carolina and Georgia. So of the 5 that are remaining, there's Arizona. Trump is in the lead currently with 0.72% of the vote. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is in the lead with 2.6% of the vote. Wisconsin, Donald Trump is in the lead by 3.53% of the vote. And then there's Michigan. Donald Trump is in the lead with 6.12% of the vote. There's also Nevada, which I don't see on that list there, and I haven't committed it to memory, but there wasn't enough really percentage of the vote that had come in yet for us to be definitively saying anything. In any case, the point I'm trying to make is, of the 5 battleground states that are outstanding, Donald Trump is currently in the lead in all 5 of them.
And in a place like Nevada, the demographics are something that is more favorable to them. That's an electorate that has more male voters, more Latino voters, and those are 2 groups we're seeing who are leaning towards him.
And I just want to go back to, even though we don't know where the blue wall states are yet, we're still waiting for votes to come in, some of the underlying themes that we are seeing that, Audie, you were talking about a little while ago, that I think it's important to go back to. One of the things that we started out the evening with was about the women, the question about whether or not women were going to come out for Kamala Harris,
right,
whether or not men were going to come out for Kamala Harris in a post-Roe world on that issue. And if you just look at, for example, suburban women, they, according to the national polls, they went for Trump.
It seems like abortion was not the animating issue it was the way it was right after the Dobbs ruling. In so many of these exit polls, I'm seeing that the economy, the people who are most upset, listed themselves as angry or facing severe hardship. Those are the people who really went for Trump.
Yeah, I have to confess that I always thought in the last week or 2 of the campaign, this idea of trying to appeal to secret voters was something of a risk. Anderson?
Jake, thanks very much. This is the first time we've all talked. David Axelrod, what do you make of what we've seen?
Look, I think that this was a race that was very, very close in the polling. And for the longest time, including up until last night, I and others said we had notions, we had feelings, but we weren't going to make any predictions. And the truth is we're sitting here tonight and we're waiting for the 3 states that can determine the race one way or the other to render a verdict, and they're close. And she's right to wait to have those votes counted. But what was very clear watching the night unfold is that rural areas voted for her in significantly less numbers than, or percentage-wise, than they did for Joe Biden 4 years ago. And she could make up the difference in some of these suburban areas and the cities. And I think the discussion that John King had was very pertinent. I care deeply, more than I can say tonight, about democracy and what it means. I've said it a million times, I'm the son of a refugee, and I revere this country, and I'm so grateful for what it's given my family and everyone else. But part of democracy, and this is my major difference with Donald Trump, part of a democracy is to honor the will of the people, to honor its institutions. And I imagine that that's what the vice president's going to do when the final verdict comes in, if it's not a positive verdict. And I think there is a message in that. Yeah. There is a message in that. And I think it's an important message.
I think the reality is Kamala Harris faced tremendous headwinds heading into this. I was riding on a bit of a vibe, in a sense, in the final stretch because she did feel like she had energy. But the fundamentals have been against her from the outset. Biden's unpopularity was dragging her. She had opportunities to create distance with him, and I think chose not to. I think it's a respectful thing. You don't want to throw your boss under the bus. But the reality is Donald Trump was going to blow Joe Biden out of the water, and she needed to create that distance. There's also just some fundamental shifts that I think are happening, a realignment with the parties and within the country, and I think...
All right, let me take this back to my guest on the broadcast, James Russell, who continues to be with us. James, we were just learning of, where are the stakes really in favor of Donald Trump at the moment, and how most of the people there at CNN, also our colleagues, talking about how the unpopularity of Joe Biden has dragged Kamala Harris, and that's really speaking much about her campaign. In fact, for her campaign manager and one of the senior person from the Kamala Harris campaign really coming out there and saying that she will not be addressing the gathering at the Kamala Harris HQ really says a lot. And while we learn of that, we are also learning how Donald Trump is already headed to that watch party, and his address to his supporters is almost imminent.
Yes, right.
Mr. Russell.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think this is what's happening, obviously, in the evening in the United States, which is that the Democrats are going down in flames once more, and Trump is going to ascend to the throne. It's a replay of 2016, very much so, and so. This is what you would have expected to come out of the Harris spokesperson, and it does not. They haven't been getting any good news all night. There were all kinds of hopes coming into this election evening that she was going to be close in places like North Carolina and Georgia, and the truth is they weren't. And there was this hopeful poll in Iowa the other day that had her up, and she got swamped in Iowa. And so, what is there to say about this for a citizen like myself? I'm aghast at what has happened in the country, and the vote that most Americans are casting for dictatorship, which is what it amounts to, and a convicted felon a grifter, an incompetent businessman who doesn't have the best interests of the American people at heart, and they've given him license for another 4 years. That's what it looks like, and I think it's an absolutely extraordinary event that says not very much about Donald Trump, but it says a lot about the state of the United States, that is to say, the state of America. And it's not a flattering portrait of the United States in any way, shape, or form. It's a very depressing sight to think that the millions of people sign up to this vision of America that's divided and that is going to be going after immigrants and that is against women. I mean, the list of things just goes on that the people of the country are apparently comfortable with. And what I would say is about it all is that the American people are going to get exactly what they deserve with Donald Trump coming into office.
Mr. Russell, you said it exactly like it is, because you mentioned about the women. They seem to have voted for Donald Trump. You mentioned about the immigrants. They seem to have voted for Donald Trump. And that's how things really stand over here. 2 of the key battleground states have already been called. They are going to Donald Trump, only 5 of them remaining. And most of where Donald Trump, in fact, all of them has Donald Trump really leading. In fact, hold that thought. We will go into a very, very short break and come right back. We do know how Donald Trump is already on his way to address that watch party there at the Donald Trump HQ.
$1,242 vote lead.
He suggests, as far as the electoral map is concerned, it says 227 in the red.
I mean, look.
Sorry. Yes, Tara, please go ahead.
I think it's like always they say, you can't be an astrologer in politics. It never takes place the way you want it. But to be frank, I'm not for Trump, so I'm hoping Kamala Harris picks up on this race. She could go ahead in Pennsylvania, because that is, well, I would expect it should, because it is a state where the causes which she's flagging seems to matter. But then it's, the whole, what shall I say, you've got Trump saying that climate change doesn't exist. I mean, how can you even say that? He's saying the most incredible things. He wants to build, building the wall on immigration is probably something that will appeal to voters, because it's a very, very strong issue here in terms of the, kind of, and.
But Tara, the fact that you say that Iowa has voted in favor of Trump, and there is a huge amount of Latino vote bank over there which did not vote in favor of Harris.
That's what I said. I said even Indians are voting in favor of Trump. They should not, right? By all logic, they should be for immigration, but they're not. So I think much of it is to do with the fact that, the economy, like everyone says, is the economy stupid? That's at the center of this debate. People want a better life, like she said. That is not coming across in Kamala Harris' campaign. She's talking of, middle class, which is very important. She's talking of bringing them up. But he's saying front and center, we have to make America rich again. I'll tell you how to get rich. That is his central message. I mean, it's not in so many words, but that's pretty much what he's saying. So I think that and plus, of course, foreign policy doesn't come into these polls at all.
Yes.
Nobody cares. So it's all about, like we said, jobs and so on and so forth. I don't think even climate, anybody cares. It's not even an issue here. But taxes, yes. Education, yes. Housing, affordable housing, all that is, Trump is tick boxing in very unreal, some of them. I mean, if you look at the Trumpometer which someone has put up, he hasn't kept most of his promises in all these areas, but he still wins. So even if you look at the businesses, after that huge violence which happened, and everybody condemned all that, all those guys have gone back to Trump. So it's finally, like they say, it's about the money, honey. It's who's going to put money in whose pockets.
Interesting point, Tara. Thank you so much. And also, Nikhil, I'd request you to stay on with us. Let's go back to CNN's live broadcast and see what are the latest projections really showing, because CNN recently has just called North Carolina going in favor of the Republicans, Donald Trump.
of illegal immigrants north is now being felt as an issue, not just on the border, but in northern states as well.
Yeah, and Jacob.
History in the making, because after 2016, just in these years' time, you are seeing a return of Donald Trump to that presidential chair. We also know how the key swing states, out of the 7, 2 of them have already been called. They are in favor of Donald Trump, just 5 of those remaining, and most of them, in fact, all of them, sees a lead by Donald Trump. In fact, taking this to CNN as far as the latest projections are concerned, let's cut across live to our sister channel CNN and learn about a lot that's happening there.
187 electoral votes. There are 270 electoral votes, as always, needed to win. Let's look at the states we have not called yet. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump in the lead there still, 51.1% of the vote. Ahead of Kamala Harris, who has 47.8% of the vote. Trump leads with more than 214,000 votes. That's with an estimated 92% of the vote in. Michigan now, Donald Trump in the lead, 52.1% of the vote. Kamala Harris, 46% of the vote. Donald Trump with a more than 215,000 vote lead. That's with 62% of the estimated vote in from the Wolverine state. The Badger state of Wisconsin now, Donald Trump, 51.2% of the vote. Kamala Harris, 47.2% of the vote. Donald Trump, more than 113,000 votes ahead of Harris, with an estimated 86% of the vote in from Wisconsin. In Arizona now, Donald Trump in the lead there too, 49.9% of the vote. Harris with 49.2% of the vote. Donald Trump with a more than 12,000 vote lead. That's with only 52% of the estimated vote in from Arizona. Still a lot of votes to count in Arizona. Nevada now, they've really counted a lot of votes. Donald Trump, 50.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris, 47.6% of the vote. Donald Trump with a more than 33,000 vote lead. That is with 70% of the estimated vote in from Nevada. Last time we looked, it was only 2%. John King, look at that. Your buddies in Nevada reporting their votes there.
Well, you know, last time it took a very, very long time. So if they're starting to get some in tonight, that's progress for Nevada. I just want to show this. This was a conversation you guys were having over at the panel table the other day, just on the importance of Pennsylvania, as we're at this point now, where North Carolina and Georgia have gone for Trump. You see the yellow of the states still on the map. Now, we project Alaska is going to come in for the Republican. If that were to change, that would change these paths. But there is no path to 270 for the vice president that does not include the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So, yes, she needs to win all blue wall states to get there. That would get her there on its own as long as she wins Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. But there's no way to get there without Pennsylvania, which is why that is absolutely critical that she win there. I just want to show you what I mean. Let's assume that she came back and won Michigan. She's trailing now. Let's assume she came back and won Wisconsin. She's trailing now. She's trailing here, and she's trailing here. Even if she won them all, if Donald Trump won that, he'd be over the top. And so, you know, if she is winning this, she can afford to lose something else along the way. But because this is why we've talked about this for weeks, and that's why both campaigns spent more money in Pennsylvania than any other state, Commonwealth by far. The 19 electoral votes, 19 versus 16, 19 versus 11, 19 versus 10. It just affects your path to 270 math in such a profound way. So as you look at where we are now and you come back out into the latest vote count right there, Pennsylvania is paramount. That does not mean the other ones don't matter. Just winning Pennsylvania wouldn't be enough to get her there either. I'm just saying she can't win without Pennsylvania. Donald Trump can. Donald Trump can, but she cannot win without Pennsylvania. And so if you look here right now, where are you? That's 219,342 votes with 93% of the vote in. This is why when you heard Cedric Richmond at the Harris event said we would not hear from the vice president tonight and that she wants every vote counted. You did not hear him say, we see a viable path to victory. He did not speak those words. That doesn't mean it's not mathematical. You know, the states have not been called. But he did not say we see a viable path to victory. He said we want all the votes to be counted. And so you look here at 51%. Again, one of the big questions was, could Donald Trump get over 50? In most of these battleground states in 2016 and 2020, he was a 47, he was a 48, maybe he was a 49. In Pennsylvania right now, Donald Trump is at 51.1. And again, you're looking at a state, the vice president simply, there's a lot of states to count still, but if you want to look at one question, she cannot lose Pennsylvania. She just cannot. The math doesn't work if she does. So you're looking, yes, there are still some votes down to be counted down here. I think when we get closer to 100% in Philadelphia, that's going to settle the math once and for all. It's improbable at the moment. Let's just be honest about it, but it's not impossible. So you keep it on the board right there, and you look 78% though. 78% estimated in Philadelphia. She's at 78%. Look at the 484. You come back here, 78% to 81%. 3 points in the state's largest city that is absolutely fundamental to Democratic victory, underperforming Joe Biden by 3 percentage points, and at the moment, more than 100,000 votes. We're not done with the math yet. That's it. I mean, you can find other places too. You can find. We looked through some of the blue-collar counties earlier where she was underperforming Biden and Trump was moving up. We can come back and look at that again if you want. Just Trump outperforming 2020 by 3% or more. This is significant. It's happening mostly in counties he's winning anyway. But she's overperformed a little bit in Chester County down there, which, again, 8-10 years ago was a Republican county. But where is Donald in Bucks County, which he's right at is currently flipped to red. But a lot of it's out here in places where Donald Trump already runs strong. He's running stronger, and that's critical. One of the questions coming into the campaign was, well, Donald Trump got 2016 phenomenon, more votes in 2020, but he lost. Are there really more Trump voters out there? Well, yes, apparently there are. And you see them right there, and you see them in other states as well. So there's Pennsylvania. Jake, I just want to go through these quickly to see if the math has changed. 63%. We've been stuck there for a little bit. You come down here. Again, when you're looking at 224,000 votes, Joe Biden won Michigan by 154,000 votes. Donald Trump's at 224,000 votes. And so you're looking and you're saying, where? Where? Is it possible? Well, the only place you can get that many votes is Wayne County. They're at 24%. So you see, she's at 58% right there. Donald Trump at 39%. Again, you want the conversation that is going to start once these states are called, assuming we stay on the trajectory we are on, which the trajectory we are on, not there, we're not the finish line, but the trajectory we are on is an overwhelming Donald Trump victory in the Electoral College. The possibility of flipping back all 3 blue wall states, but even if he loses Michigan, look at that. That's going to be a conversation in the Democratic Party. How's that happening? How is Donald Trump getting 30% up to 39%? How's that happen? How did he get 30%? The Democrats were already debating how did he get 30% 4 years ago. If that number holds and Donald Trump's above 35%, close to 40% in Wayne County, Michigan, the Democratic Party has a big conversation on its hand. When I started doing this a very long time ago, it was about the Reagan Democrats in Macomb County. Now it's going to be about the Trump Democrats everywhere. Including black men in Wayne County. There'll be people saying it's the Arab American vote. Young voters didn't come out. The analysis will start as soon as we're done getting someone to 270. But that's a huge problem. And you see it again here. Again, the foundation of the Democratic Party is urban America, and then the close-in suburbs. That's where the math is. And that has allowed Democrats, allowed Joe Biden to withstand all of that. Donald Trump's phenomenon in rural America, where he's not only winning those counties, but the math is up, and this time again, he turned out more voters. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is Milwaukee County, the city and the suburbs around it, but the vice president's at 66%. That looks impressive, except when you go back 4 years ago, and you see the President of the United States was at 69%. And so in place after place, especially starting in the foundations, Anderson, the building blocks of the Democratic Party, which is urban America, she's having a problem. We're not done with all the vote counting yet, but she's underperforming President Biden from 4 years ago. In the close-in suburbs, you can find some exceptions to this, but in the close-in suburbs, she's doing reasonably well, reasonably close, exceeding it in some places. But Trump is doing better in urban America, a little bit better in some key suburbs in battleground states, and turning out even more voters in the red rural counties where we have seen the Trump phenomenon in 2016 and 2020. It's with us again in 2024.
Yeah. John, we'll come back to you. Caitlin Collins is at Trump headquarters, where we expect the former president to speak soon. Caitlin, do we know, how soon he may get there, and any idea on what he may say?
No, Anderson. Obviously, we're waiting to see what this is going to look like because this is so new to the Trump campaign as well. They've been watching these numbers carefully all night as John King has been going back and forth on the magic wall, but they themselves obviously were waiting to see, were there any surprises in store? They were watching closely. The gut check of North Carolina and Georgia obviously came through for them, and now we are told Donald Trump is he is making preparations to head over here to the convention center. This is where the official watch party is, and Anderson, we saw aides preparing the teleprompter on stage, heightening the lectern and the microphone to make sure it's ready. So a clear sign that we do expect to hear from him. When that happens remains to be seen. And Kristen, obviously, as we've been looking at this, Trump is famously very superstitious. he doesn't like to, start planning things too far in advance, talking too much about who he'd put in a potential cabinet, much less working on a speech, which he said today he did not have remarks prepared.
And even the people around him were hesitant to put anything down. There were some conversations about potentially drafting something either way, drafting two versions of the speeches, but they were still hesitant to even do that. And a reminder that Donald Trump finished up his rally last night at 2:30 in the morning. When they got on the plane, there were some conversations about what tonight was going to look like, but essentially everybody was like, let's wait and see, let's go and see. Now, I am told that when Donald Trump gets here, it's not clear if he's going to go to the stage right away. We know, obviously, they have called North Carolina and Georgia, which were big wins for the Trump campaign. Whether or not they're going to wait for one more of those big swing states remains to be seen. We do believe he's going to be here imminently, that he's going to leave Mar-a-Lago, head over here. We obviously know that they've bussed over all of the people from Mar-a-Lago who have just arrived here. We've seen this room fill out. But how exactly he's going to handle this moment remains to be seen. We know what happened, obviously, in 2020. I am told he's in a very different headspace now than he was at that point, probably because of the fact that they are telling him that he could win this.
Yeah, you could sense that today when he was voting at his polling place as well. He was talking in more reflective ways about the campaign. He was saying he believed it was one of the best campaigns they've ever run, talking about in terms of just pure messaging. I mean, obviously, some of his allies would disagree from the candidate himself on that front. But one thing about this room tonight, obviously it's filled with his supporters who were here, who were invited by the campaign. A lot of his allies were also at Mar-a-Lago with him, people like Elon Musk, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dana White. We've seen Senator Marco Rubio trickling in here. House Speaker Mike Johnson is also on the way. So it's also important to see who's going to be around him.
That's going to matter to Donald Trump a lot. It's going to matter to Donald Trump a lot who actually steps up and shows up here tonight, who left their races early before they were called or right after they were called to come to Palm Beach. And we were told that there were a lot of people considering doing that because of the fact that they know Donald Trump cares about loyalty. They were considering coming if it looked like the race was going the way that it currently looks like it's going. So we can likely expect more House members here that we've seen already.
Yeah, and we know family members obviously have been around him. We saw, I was told by someone that Barron Trump was with him in Mar-a-Lago earlier. Obviously, Melania Trump went and voted with him at their polling place just a few hours after y'all got back from Michigan from that early morning rally. Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, I think that's an open question. They do live down here, obviously, in South Florida, but they have not been prominent faces on the campaign trail.
I come back to 2024, and let's just pop in this and see where's Harris underperforming. Where is Harris underperforming Joe Biden? In a state Joe Biden won by 11,000 votes, you can't really underperform. And she's underperforming in 28 of the 159 counties, right? So we have more votes to be counted. We're not done yet. This is not a final glimpse. But you see out in these rural areas, this is part of the secret of Joe Biden's win in 2020. He got his butt kicked by Donald Trump in these small rural counties, but he did better than Hillary Clinton. Blue-collar workers, rural workers, people who work with their hands, Joe Biden did just a little bit better. And in a state decided by 11,000 votes, that can matter. So again, you asked me about the map. We're not done. We're going to count. The Harris campaign will update us. They know their counties. We have people on the ground asking the people, our vote desk with Pam Brown, what votes are still outstanding. But if you look at this map right now, I want to switch. Well, let's just check real quickly where we are in Wisconsin, 61%. I want to check Milwaukee. This is where, okay, only a 53% in Milwaukee. Black turnout in Milwaukee better be huge in the uncounted vote for the vice president to catch up. I talked to a Democrat out there earlier who said it was good. They didn't say it was great. They said it was good.
Vote in Wisconsin, still about a third of the state's vote is outstanding. What can you tell us?
Yeah, we just heard a big cheer go up here in Milwaukee at the central count, as they call it, because all the wards have finally reported. So they are counting these ballots as fast as they can. They do believe that they're going to be able to give some kind of idea of this count after midnight. It will not take the extra 2 or 3 hours they thought it might because of that problem with what happened with the tabulators, which, by the way, are right behind me, one of them. All 13 of them, there was an issue. A door was not locked, and so they, out of an abundance of caution, decided that they were going to rerun through the absentee ballots, 30,000 of them, but they've been able to do that, and now they're about 80,000 of 325,000 that have already been processed. All right, with me now, we have Patricia Ruiz-Cantu and Douglas Haig, Republican, Democrat. Both of them are on the Milwaukee Election Commission. First of all, how are things going, and do you think we're going to find out something soon?
We will. I think things are going really well, even though we had a little hiccup. But, as...
Let's now take a look at the latest projections by CNN. Former President Donald Trump has won Ohio, Iowa, Kansas, and Idaho. Now, there are 17 electoral votes at stake in Ohio, 6 electoral votes at stake in Kansas, and 4 of them at stake in Idaho. In fact, CNN has also projected that Vice President Kamala Harris has won California, Oregon, and there are about 54 electoral votes that are in stake in California, and it takes at least, remember, 270 electoral votes to win the U.S. presidential race. Now remember, America is waiting with bated breath, and so is the world, for the outcome of this closely contested U.S. elections 2024.
If they keep the House, whatever Donald Trump wants will become law. There will not be the backstop of the Senate controlled by Democrats.
Did not want the backstop. This is what I'm trying to say. We may be looking at a map of voters who weren't looking to give him a backstop.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Not to get too sort of dorky here, but I think it is still possible, if he is president, that some big pieces of legislation could be stopped in the United States Senate, because legislation at this point still needs 60 votes. But it is the cabinet who he's going to have in his, not just in and around his administration, but again, the bench, that is all regular majority.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about it, because the Supreme Court they ruled on the Chevron deference and basically said executive agencies can't have the untrammeled authority to do what they want. It has to be passed by Congress. And you could end up with the Democratic minority. I mean, again, all of this is somewhat speculative. Democratic minority in the Senate being able to block legislation, and the Trump agencies not able to enact it on their own.
Yep. Just one of many things that we would be talking about if Donald Trump does, in fact, win. We're not there yet. Jake, over to you.
Thanks, Dana. Let's bring you back to the key race alert and where we stand with the battleground states that we have not called yet. Pennsylvania, Donald Trump in the lead, 51.1%. Kamala Harris is 47.8%. Donald Trump has an almost 220,000 vote lead. That's with 93% of the estimated vote in from the great Keystone State. Michigan, Donald Trump up 52.4% to Harris's 45.8%. Donald Trump with a more than 244,000 vote lead in Michigan, with 66% of the estimated vote in. In Wisconsin, Donald Trump, 51.2%. Harris, 47.1%. Donald Trump with a more than 120,000 vote lead, with an estimated 89% of the vote in from the Badger State of Wisconsin. Arizona, Donald Trump in the lead, 50% to Harris's 49.1%. Donald Trump has a 16,000 plus vote lead, with an estimated 53% of the vote in from Arizona. In Nevada, Donald Trump in the lead there, 51% to Kamala Harris's 47.4%. Donald Trump with a more than 37,000 vote lead, with 70% of the estimated vote in from Nevada. John King.
You're looking at the map, and we're just trying to see. The only question really now is, well, the first question is, can the vice president win Pennsylvania? If she does not, Donald Trump is the next president of the United States. And then from there, if she wins Pennsylvania, Donald Trump still has other paths to 270. So for the vice president, your priority is here. And you'll notice all three of those states are red. That's the so-called blue wall. The blue wall is ruby red at the moment, not done counting the votes. So let's turn it off and wander through them, starting in your home state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Key thing here, these are close battleground states. Look at the size of Donald Trump's lead as we go through them. All right, Joe Biden wins this by 80,000 and change 4 years ago. Donald Trump is ahead with 93% of the vote in by 219,000 votes plus. So that's hard to overcome when you're at 93%. And statewide so far, you're getting 48% if you round that up. Do the math at home. She has to get well in excess of that, hugely in excess of that when you're at 93% to have a chance to catch up. Hugely, way overperform where she has been throughout the night. Miracles happen. So you look here at Philadelphia, you kind of come here. This gets pretty stunning when you go through it county by county. We're not at the final results. Maybe the end will look a little better than this. Maybe the vice president can come back. But again, you look at here, Donald Trump getting 21% in Philadelphia, the vice president getting 78%. You go back when Joe Biden won the state, Donald Trump was at 18, the president was at 81. And you're seeing this over and over again. You go out to Bucks County here, Joe Biden at 52%. If you round that up, Trump at 47 4 years ago. You come back here. I said early in the night, if this stays red, Donald Trump will win the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's still red. Not done, but it's still red. This is the blue-collar suburban area. Your cops, your firefighters move out of the city to get a little house with a patch of grass. It gets a little bit bigger out here when you move out, but look at this. It's just, she's at 48%, 49% if you round that up. The President of the United States was at 52. Again, it's a very competitive battleground county, but to win the Pennsylvania, you want to be on the top end in Bucks County, and at the moment, the vice president is on the losing end. Then you move over here to Lehigh County. This was the big conversation, right? Both candidates there in the final days because of the Madison Square Garden event, the debate about is the Trump going to lose the Puerto Rican votes, another Latino votes because of this. Well, at the moment, Harris 95%, so not a lot of room for this to change. 51% for the vice president. She's winning the county, but she's not winning the county again. Look at Joe Biden. Now, this is Joe Biden's birth state. He had a home field advantage, maybe. It was in a pandemic. Donald Trump was at his weakest, I guess you come out of that. So you can rationalize it away, but we do the math here. And the math is that she's running behind. That's 53% for the president. And once again, the vice president. So there'll be a lot of conversations about blue-collar workers. Is it sexism? Is it racism? Is it because she didn't break with Biden on cost of living issues? This is going to be the conversation if this map continues. So you come back out again and you look. Here's a place. This is Trump country, Pennsylvania, Luzerne County, right? But you always look at sometimes the margins within where the other guy's winning or the other gal's winning. You just want to cut into their margins in a close battleground state. Donald Trump at 60, the vice president at 39%, and you come back here, Joe Biden at 42%. That's the difference. The margins within some of these places, even where you're losing, you have to improve your margins. Where you're winning, run them up. Where you're losing, try to cut the other guy's margins up. And she simply has failed to do that across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I could go on, but the point is the point. And then there's this. Again, in a big state like this, a complicated state like this, this is just Trump country. 70% here, 51% there, a little bit more competitive, but 75% there, 73% there. That's how he does it. And you have to combat that and contrast that. And even in those counties, again, in most of them, Harris not matching where the president was. So that's the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You look at the popular vote when you come on out. Again, Donald Trump lost the popular vote twice. Even when he won the presidency in 2016, he lost the popular vote. He lost it by more than 7 million votes 4 years ago. At the moment, a lot of votes to be counted. At the moment, he's 5 million votes ahead in the popular vote. And again, you know Donald Trump would like that trophy. In addition to winning 270 electoral votes, which he's not at yet, he's on a path to it, but he's not there yet, he would love that trophy. We'll see if he gets it. Michigan, we're up to 67% now. This has been a slow walk. You're up to 67%. But again, 154,000 votes for the president 4 years ago. Donald Trump's lead is well in excess of that. 224,000 votes. You're at 67%, so there's more vote out. A lot of it is right here. This is essentially it. Just like I said, Philadelphia is it. If the vice president's going to come have some improbable mathematical comeback in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it must be based in Philadelphia. That's where the most people live. That's where the most votes are out. The same for the vice president here in Michigan, only 32% in Wayne County. But again, this will be the conversation. If we get to the finish line and the result is as it is, look at Donald Trump at 41% in Wayne County. That's Detroit and the suburbs around Detroit. 30% in 2020, 40% in 2024. If Donald Trump has a 10-point gain in Detroit, that's Dearborn, that's Hamtramck, that's Wayne, auto factory, auto workers here, inner city Detroit here. That's going to be a giant conversation in the Democratic Party now, much like this was in the late 1980s when Ronald Reagan flipped Macomb County from blue to red. Trump has flipped it back. You see Trump at 57%, 58% if you want to round that up. Again, this will be the conversation after. If this race continues where it's looking right now, 41% for the Democrat in Macomb County right now, 45% for Joe Biden 4 years ago. So pick your challenge. Black voters in the urban area, cities in general, blue-collar workers in places like Macomb County, blue-collar workers in places like Luzerne County or Lackawanna County. You keep going on. She's underperforming where Joe Biden was 4 years ago. There can be many reasons for that. I would say one of them was a very effective Trump ad, what she said on The View when they asked her, what would you change? She said, not a thing. The Trump campaign, Trump himself, flawed candidate, although people are going to say, you all said he was a flawed candidate. This looks pretty impressive. But Trump's the ad messaging, the cost of living thing, where she said, not a thing. She tried to amend that answer later, but they turned that around pretty quickly.
It was, without question, and we've been saying this all year, the most professional campaign that Trump has had in his 3 runs for president. I came over here because I want you to show me, even in the blue states, what's going on. Let's, like, for example, take me to New Jersey. All right, that's a state. I mean, just look at that. 51. It's with 80%, 88% in, so not all the votes in, but 51% to 46%. How did Joe Biden do?
5 points. 5 points better for Donald Trump. Look at him more than him. You know, if you're a Democrat in a blue state, you're trying to figure out what's happening to my party. You know, is it all Trump? And I mean, there's a separate fascinating conversation going because a lot of the people who are going to be in that Republican Senate with a President Donald Trump, if this continues to go where it's going, you know as well as I do, a lot of them don't like him. They wish he was not the leader of their party. But he is, and there's nothing they can do about it, and they know that. And so they're going to work with it. But again, so the Republican candidate for president 4 years ago got 41% in New Jersey, and the Republican candidate for president this time is getting 47% in New Jersey. There'll be all sorts of, oh, nobody spent any ad money there. Oh, nobody focused on the presidential race there. Oh, make all the excuses you want. That's a problem.
But it was a 16-point spread last time, and it's a 5-point spread now. What about New York? Take me to New York.
Come back out and come back in. The Empire State.
Okay, so she's up by 11 percentage points, not all the votes in, 92%. So 11 points. How did Biden do?
Yeah, it's a lot more.
23.
23.
From 23 points to 11 points. So, I mean, it's not, and actually, you know what? Show me some of the counties. Can you go into like Queens and?
You can come down here and you can get into Manhattan here.
So Manhattan.
And Manhattan is not Donald Trump territory.
Right.
It wasn't then.
But I mean like Queens, Bronx.
Now, you can wander around in here if you want to come over here to Bronx. So 27% for Donald Trump. Yeah.
83%. Yeah. So he made inroads in these outer boroughs as well. It's all about the blue wall as we wait for a final verdict in the battlegrounds of Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, 3 potential deciders in this presidential race. We're expecting Donald Trump to speak any moment, but first we're going to squeeze in a quick break. We'll be right back.
President of the United States, after everything that we saw.
Trump about to speak any minute now, addressing that watch party. We are bracing up for that as all our colleagues are waiting there to listen to what the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who's very much on the path to victory, really is going to say. We all know how he has been pretty much reticent about really having a speech prepared. He just doesn't go that way because he wanted to play it very, very safe. But right now, what we do know, out of all the 7 swing states, 2 of them have already gone in favor of Donald Trump. The rest of the 5 are also having him leading, and that also pretty much speaks about the victory that is going in favor of Donald Trump. We are waiting for that speech to happen any minute now from Palm Beach, where we are in fact waiting in Florida that he is going to come and address that watch party. We also know how Kamala Harris's campaign advisor had come out at the HQ and really addressed the supporters, saying that she is not going to come out and address them tonight. It in all probability will happen tomorrow. So probably the Camp Harris had already in fact seen where the projections really are going. The fact that all the blue wall seats have in fact turned red, so to speak, even if there are couple of votes, in fact, a couple of thousands of votes are still to be counted, especially in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. We do see how the stakes are in favor of Donald Trump at the moment. Now, we are joined on the broadcast by Berzin Wagmar, who's a SOS South Asian Institute, London. He is with us on the broadcast. Berzin, how do you see the way things are standing at the moment? We were hoping it is going to be some sort of an advantage for Kamala Harris as far as the blue wall states are concerned, so-called blue wall states, because all of them are turning red.
Yes, that is true. The predictable voters, the college-educated Democrat, coastal elites and the rest of it. But it's just gone 20 past 1 Eastern time on the Eastern Seaboard. Virginia declared an hour ago at midnight. It did not declare at, well, obviously it couldn't when polls closed at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And this is what American psephologists had to say, and it has turned up Trump, literally, as it were, in that if Virginia does not call early, and it did not, it did 5 hours later at midnight, Mr. Trump can look forward to a good night. So that portent has come to pass. Ultimately, it comes down to 7 states through which the balance hangs, although this has been very much a dead heat election and very keenly followed. But the other factors that are in play here, which are in greater magnitude and scale to be evinced in 2024 compared to Trump 1.0 in 2016, is this: that Mr. Trump's appeal cuts through all strata of society. In Bronx, which is an impoverished borough of New York, for example, it's not exactly Manhattan or Upper East Side, Mr. Trump has made major. The last time this was evident was when President Reagan's landslide victory in '84. So there is something of Mr. Trump's appeal which speaks not just to that, to also Hispanic voters, and also within the Indian American community, which must impinge upon your program, among male voters. There is a pattern evinced in that female voters do plump for Miss Harris, even Indian diasporic voters compared to their male counterparts. And you would remember as on the eve of the elections, former President Obama made a very chiding speech, almost like a schoolmaster, to the black community of males, that they ought to be getting their act together and stand up to support a female and not be, pandering to chauvinist politics of the sort that Mr. Trump stands for, with alpha male attitude and that sort of thing. I do not believe Mr. Obama's hectoring of his own kith and kin went down well too. So that is what we would have to see. But moving aside, and also incidentally, the Trump team from Mar-a-Lago has started moving to the convention center. We do know that for a fact too. If daybreak comes to pass and it's a decisive victory, what I would personally like to see, with our special relationship between London and DC, is one would really like to see this. And I don't just speak for London in unofficial capacity. I'm not a government person. I'm just an academic. We would like to see less dysfunctionality and chaos. Because during Trump 1.0, in 4 years, there's a rotation of 26 cabinet secretaries, total 44 senior officials. I mean, Mr. Trump, at the end of the day, is an entrepreneur. So he has this hire and fire attitude and this open door policy. But that may work in a workplace where you are a capitalist or an entrepreneur, if not in a government setting. So one would like to see less of that chaos ensuing in the next 4 years. That is what I would like to put forward at this point in time.
Right, Berzin, thank you so much for sharing your views there. We also have on the broadcast Professor Brahma Chelani, strategic affairs expert, who's with us on the broadcast now. Professor Chelani, if we take a look, and we have so far not been talking about the geopolitical significance of the US elections, has that at all impacted what we see happening at the US elections at the moment, and where and to what end the scales really are tripping? The entire anger at the White House over its stance on the war in Gaza, do you see that Kamala Harris is bearing the brunt of all of that?
I think the deepening U.S. involvement in the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East certainly has played a factor in disenchantment in the U.S. toward the Democratic Party. it's clear that the traditional Democratic Party base has eroded, and that some of the constituencies that traditionally voted for the Democratic Party, including the American Arabs, have either not voted for Kamala Harris, or the enthusiasm for the Harris ticket was quite weak. So it has had an impact on voter turnout, on votes actually cast in favor of Kamala Harris. So all said and done, it appears that foreign policy, after all, is indeed a factor in U.S. elections. Contrary to what many people say, people say it's the economy first, it's the domestic issues second, but they always place foreign policy much lower down. But it appears that at least in a close contest like the one that is unfolding now in terms of the counting of votes, that, for example, in some of these key battleground states, the margin of victory is only 3 or 4%. It appears that foreign policy issues, especially Biden's deepening involvement in the wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East, have created this kind of reaction within the U.S. because people don't like wars. They don't like the U.S. to be involved in wars eternally. The U.S. has been fighting wars, one war after another, throughout its history. And I think there is a war fatigue in the U.S. which has worked in the favor of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. And we should not forget that, and this is the flip side of it, because normally people think of the Democratic Party as left-leaning and the Republicans as right-leaning. But in terms of foreign policy and interventionism, it's the other way around. The Republicans, by and large, are non-interventionists, especially Donald Trump, for example, while the Democratic Party is a pro-war party. So this is contrary to the social issues where Democratic Party is clearly left-leaning and the Republican Party is conservative on social issues. Certainly, for example, on issues like abortion or even on gun control, they are pretty gung-ho on owning guns. But on interventionism and intervening in the affairs of other countries, the Republicans are more of this hands-off approach type of people.
Okay. All right, Professor Chilani and Bazin, thank you so much. Just stay on with us. We are cutting across back to CNN to see when at all is the Republican candidate Donald Trump going to be addressing the West Palm Beach. We are, remember, waiting for him to address that watch party there. But let's take a look at what's happening at CNN. What are the further projections really saying?
50 in the battleground states. So you have to eliminate the third-party candidates and just get above him. Just get above 49, get 49.5. Well, Trump tonight blew that part up, at least where we are right now, because he's above 50 in Pennsylvania. He's above 50 in Michigan, where he was at 48 again, and you go back to 2016, 48. Trump was a constant, except for this year he grew. Or he's growing anyway. We don't have the final numbers right now, but he's above 50 there. And then in battleground Wisconsin, I won't go back and forth again through it again, but he was a 47, 48, 2016, 2020, and there he is above 50% with, again, this state decided by 20,000 votes, 2 elections in a row. Donald Trump's ahead by 125,000. This state won by Joe Biden last time by 154,000 votes, a big win for the Democrats here. Then the Democratic governor wins in 2022. The Democrats may gain in the legislatures. Democrats think Michigan is growing in their favor. Donald Trump's 243,000 votes ahead with 69%. Still some room there maybe to see it happen. That's the one with the most outstanding vote. And Anderson, as I throw back to you, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so critical to Trump cracking the blue wall, flipping the blue wall in 2016. His biggest disappointment when he lost it in 2020. Still won't admit he lost it in 2020. And now you see in 2024, again, was an 80,000 vote.
Let's now take this across to CNN's Paula Newton, who is live with us from Florida at the West Palm Beach. Paula, we do see and probably hear that the plans for celebrations have already been set in motion by Team Donald Trump. What do you see being planned out there?
Absolutely. There have been so many, dozens and dozens of Trump allies, people who have worked for Donald Trump, who have just entered the room. We are told that, in fact, the former president has left Mar-a-Lago and will arrive on the stage behind me momentarily. He has absolutely decided that he will claim victory here. His allies here have already told me that this is time to celebrate. They are taking this win despite the fact that the election hasn't been called yet. Really, it has been a sobering reminder that Donald Trump has been able to put a coalition here to be able to defeat Kamala Harris, the first woman who many believe in the Democratic Party would be the first woman president, and it does not look like that history will be made again as well. Donald Trump, his campaign advisors saying that they have put together quite a coalition. They believe it is a diverse coalition. They also believe that right now they have flipped the Senate. They are hopeful that they will retain the House of Representatives. They have quite a mandate to govern here. It is looking as if the former president will as well win the popular vote, which is something he has not done, certainly in the prior two elections. We continue to await Donald Trump. I am keeping a very careful eye on the door. We know he's left Mar-a-Lago. We expect him here any minute.
Right, and Paula, you know, Trump has managed to win at least 2 of those battleground states. He's leading in the rest of the 5. What do you
chapter and verse what he articulated in his policies for the last few months, and he may be able to get much of that done. We are again waiting the president's arrival. We believe they will announce him shortly.
Right, Paula Newton there. Probably any minute now, Donald Trump is going to be arriving at the West Palm Beach, like Paula is reporting from, and we are going to see him address that huge gathering, the watch party of the Republicans. All the supporters of Donald Trump have gathered over there. But right now, what we're doing is cutting back live to CNN, and let's see what's happening over there.
Working class party, that is a shock, but the policy implications for planet Earth are yet to be known.
I mean, I think that's the real open question. So are we getting 20% tariffs? That's going to be devastating for the economy. Are there going to be mass deportations on American soil? That's what he ran on, and I believe it's actually the mandate the voters gave
listen,
him.
so I think on the tariff things, as you see, tariffs are a negotiating tool, right? That's what it was in the first administration. That's what it'll be in this administration. There are 350,000 criminal aliens here in the United States. I think it'd probably take 4 years just to find, locate,
Let me go back to my guest on the broadcast. Berzin Wagmar continues to be with us right here on CNN News 18. Berzin, let's talk about the key 7 swing states. And out of them, Michigan was one state that had Kamala Harris leading, but unfortunately, even that is not working in her favor. Where do you think Harris's campaign really went wrong over there? We did see how, Donald Trump had ended up slamming her campaign, her position on EVs. Do you think all of that together has worked in favor of Donald Trump, and none of that Arab American Muslim population working and voting for the Democrats seems to be working for Kamala Harris?
Yes, and particularly with following the October 7th massacre, we saw Arab Americans who feel frustrated at the administration's partiality towards Israel as they perceive it, which is not really the case because Israel has always been important to the American foreign policy context. So you will see, and there have been spectacular displays leading up to the election of Arab Americans stating that they would register a protest vote in favor of Trump against Ms. Harris. And the interesting thing is this, that despite what happened in Gaza and in Israel, which is still battling on 7 fronts of war in the Middle East, the Abraham Accords do hold with Bahrain and the UAE. And that was Mr. Trump's triumph in his first administration, and credit where credit due to him on that. And that has held in due course right through after October 7th. Regardless of what Arab Americans and other Muslims in the diaspora, American Muslims in the diaspora feel, it is interesting to note that the response has been rather mute officially from, say, Bahrain, Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, and elsewhere about what Israel is pursuing as its self-defense. So, and also that points out that there isn't a Muslim monolithic voice. Arab Americans as diaspora, immigrant sorts, hyphenated identities may have these notions. Likewise with Pakistani Americans, Iranian Americans, so on and so forth. And it is that demographic that has traditionally always, the hyphenated identities, as I pointed out, who veer towards Democrat politics. It was so with the Indian Americans once upon a time too. Not anymore, as Indian Americans and even as British Indians who prosper and do better tend to take a more conservative stance in life and therefore will veer towards either the Republicans on that side of the pond or the Conservatives where I am in London. So that is to be seen. And then, of course, as Paula pointed out, there were these cultural touchstones, the intense vocery and the hysterics after the BLM movement of George Floyd's killing that happened during the pandemic, and transgender rights and the far left agenda that you see in California and New York on both coasts, run by coastal elites, as it were, and a progressive identity and affirmation of politics which are life-denying, which are so anti-American in its very self. People who perceive views of America as a settler colonist society and who smack off downright unpatriotism and are ashamed to call themselves American and proud to say that they are so, that flies in the face of the crowd that we're seeing gathering here at the convention center at Trump headquarters in Florida, who are decent, income-earning, meat and two-veg sorts who believe in their country, faith, family, and flag. And this is what we see in California and New York are just simply aberrations. They don't speak to the American psyche. That is one thing, the traditional American settled identities of, quite frankly, Caucasian and black voters, and Hispanics too. Then you have the immigrants who came in from the 60s, the hyphenated identities, as I pointed out. There has been a demographic shift, and they tend to not necessarily chime with what are traditional American values, and immigrants tend to be rather disaffected, generally speaking, and they will not hold to the politics that traditional Americans hold. One random example, in the aftermath of Osama's killing, which President Obama announced, it was in the early hours of the morning in Washington, D.C., as crowds of American youth gathered with their stars and stripes, it was mostly a sea of white Caucasian American men chanting USA and that we did it and vindicated what happened in September 2001. You could hardly see many colored Americans, these hyphenated identity Americans, chiming in with that sentiment that America has triumphed and good has triumphed over evil. So that tells you where we stand with that kind of crowd. And it is that kind of ambivalence in these diasporic communities that doesn't sit well with the settled identities of Americans. The whites and blacks and Hispanics that I refer to, who have no other extra loyalty to an old country or elsewhere, particularly with whites and blacks, for whom America is first and foremost the only country
so
they
Bazir,
know.
what do they resonate with? You mentioned about the 2020, George Floyd episode, and nothing seems to have worked in favor of Harris despite all of that, and despite that schooling that you were talking about that Barack Obama gave to specifically the black men of America. If we go back to one of the key and biggest swing states, that's Pennsylvania, it has seen how the black American voters, especially the males, they have doubled for Donald Trump.
Because that chimes in with a general view in that Mr. Trump stands for a no-nonsense, rough and ready alpha male personality, and that black males, alongside other males in the demographic who feel that they have had to pander to fourth wave feminism, progressive politics purported by intellectuals, university goers, journalists, the general commentaries in the public square as such, who beat down upon dead white males all the time as the source of all evil, as the source of all problems. Now, that is not exactly with the black male vote, but where they do come into the picture and they embrace Mr. Trump is because he doesn't sound like a glib insider in the capital beltway. He is not a DC man. He tells it as it is, and he has this what you see is what you get with me, take it or leave it attitude. So that does work in his favor. Miss Harris, Mr. Biden, and the others would always answer questions or project themselves in political terms. There is diplomacy and tact on their part. Mr. Trump doesn't set any premium by that, and he never has or never will. So that does go down well with the, as you would say in India, the aam aadmi or the common man. And that is what is chiming with the left behinds. Those are within the continental US, not the coastal elites, not the ones who can fix the system, not the Davos Club going sorts. And therefore, that is why we see it is the politics of despair and frustration that even if we are not doing well for ourselves, at least we stick it to the system with a, finger up attitude. And that's where the vote goes in favor of Mr. Trump.
What about the women voters there, Akbar? The fact that there was so much celebrity endorsement, especially by women influencers for Kamala Harris. There was that entire talk about how women must have an autonomy on their own bodies, that entire revocation of the abortion law, the Roe v. Wade, and none of that also seemed to have worked in favor of Kamala Harris. Where do you think that really, in that area, did her campaign really lag behind?
Briefly and bluntly put, Ms. Harris is an underwhelming politician. She has been for all purposes and intents. Now, partly it's not her fault in that a vice president always lives in the shadow of the president. That is always a given. But even on her own and her past, when she was the Prosecutor General in California, for example, her policies were not exactly memorable as such. She does, and incidentally, but then you can't fix, everything is just thrown up in the air with so many points. For example, we know what Mr. Trump's perspective is on tariffs and trade. Guess what? Ms. Harris also voted against the USMCA, the US-Canada-Mexico agreement, which replaced NAFTA, the North America Free Trade Agreement. So in that sense, she was also pandering to the working-class Democrat voters, the factories goers, who wanted to see, an America First policy of economic protectionism. Now, she may have made these gestures, which is all very well, because you have to play to all your constituents if you are going to be a one large tent inclusive party, which is what the Democrats have always purported to be, more so than the Republicans in their rhetoric and temper and tone. But it has clearly not gone down well. And therefore, despite the best of attempts and with the women rooting for her across the landscape, it would seem not come to pass as such.
Right, Bazine, stay on with us. We are cutting back across to CNN, and let's see what's happening over there, even as we await Donald Trump and his arrival at Florida to address that watch party of supporters of the Republican Party. Let's take a look.
From here, and then you come over here, Navajo County, and down here in the southern part of the state, Yuma County, 64% of the vote. Again, you think, oh boy, but that's double. That's almost double when you look at the raw vote count there. So how does he do it, right? So that's Arizona. You come up to Nevada. Again, it's not in Clark County. That's Vegas and the suburbs around it. But in these other places, that's the end of the campaign when everyone is obsessed about why is he only talking to his base? Well, he was talking to those people, and they turned out, and he overperformed in a lot of Republican counties. Most of the places he overperformed dramatically. This is by 3%. You'll see suburbs where that'll be something we're talking about in the days and weeks after too, by 1 point or 1.5 points. This is 3% or more, right? So when you look at this, don't think about California yet. Let the votes be counted.
So these are all the counties where he overperformed by 3% or more.
Over his 2020 number by 3% or more. And right now we're over 1,000. It's counties and townships, mostly up here in New England, but in other places too they use the word townships, not counties. So they're not trying to, if you live in a township, don't take my county. But there are 4,600 counties and townships, and in more than 1,000 of them, he has overperformed. But the thing is, they're mostly red. There are some blue, and the Democrats have to study that. But the idea of, we always say, are Republicans going to stand up to Donald Trump? Not looking at that, they're not, because he's increasing the vote that he already got. He's up over 2016, up over 2020, and now up over 2024. So you come in here and you look, and it includes Bucks County, very significant, close in there, and these other counties out here that Donald Trump likely wins anyway. So let's just bring this out now and come back to the real world.
Can I just make one more note about Bucks County? Can you bring us back to Bucks County? Yeah,
absolutely.
That was an area where Kamala Harris made a big play, even though it's a county that Donald Trump, that Joe Biden won. She made a big play there. She did an event with Liz Cheney there. She made a real pitch to the Haley voters you talked about. Let's check in with Pamela Brown at the voting desk who has an update on the ballots left to be counted in Pennsylvania. Pamela?
All right, I'm getting some information for both Philadelphia and Bucks County, that Collar County right outside of Philadelphia, that right now Trump is slightly ahead. Let's talk about Philadelphia soon. We were just talking about the fact that 6,000 mail-in ballots came in there. I'm told by an official there in Philly that maximum left for mail-in ballots, the outstanding mail-in ballots is 31,000. But this official says, look, there's going to be some issues with some of these. The signatures don't match up and so forth, and it's too late for them to be cured. So that's the max amount. Let's turn it over now to Bucks County. Again, this is a county that Biden won in 2020. It's typically a blue-leaning county just outside of Philly. I'm told by an official there are 56,000 mail-in ballots left to count out of 140,000 mail-in ballots cast there overall. And they're still waiting for 41 out of 304 precincts to report the results of in-person Election Day votes as well. I should note these counties across Pennsylvania, including Bucks, including Philadelphia, they're going to be continuously counting there until every mail-in ballot is counted. That's per the law there. Jake?
All right, Pamela, thanks so much. Appreciate it. I'm sorry to interrupt. Take me back to the places where Donald Trump is overperforming. Are there any places where Kamala Harris overperformed from where Biden did?
I'll show you that in just 1 second. I just want to put a button on what Pam was just talking about, in the sense that, so there's votes out there. Maybe Kamala Harris comes back, and that's close.
He's up by 11,000.
Yeah, right. So maybe she comes back, but again, you're talking about the margins, right? He's winning by 4, right? If she comes back and beats him, it's going to be 50-50, 51 right there. Again, underperforming the president in places. So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything on the east side there.
Literally nothing?
Literally nothing.
Literally not one county?
By 3% or more. At least in the county right now, and so you come in full county there. So there you see, but that's states, yeah. So in counties, in 58 counties, we just showed Donald Trump was over 1,000 counties of the 4,600 counties and townships across America. So if you do the full county level, there's where you see Harris at the moment. Again, there might be more out here on the West Coast, possible 1 or 2 more as they finish the count here. But in the states that matter, again, I just showed you all those Trump counties. In one county in battleground Pennsylvania, she's outperforming President Biden by 3% or more.
There were Biden stalwarts who argued that kicking him out of the nomination was a mistake. Now, I don't know that I buy that, because I don't know that the Joe Biden of 2024 is the Joe Biden of 2020. But what do you think?
I think that, well, you know, so let's come out of this map to have this conversation, just to show where we are at the moment in this race. And let's turn this off here as well. After the debate, all of the energy collapsed. The debate you moderated with Dana, the Biden-Trump debate, the air came out of the Democratic balloon. Joe Biden was going to get blown out.
So you think it would have been worse because Minnesota and Virginia, New Mexico, Colorado, those would have been...
Would the Democrats have lost those in the end? I don't know the answer to that, but all the Democrats would have broken with the president. It would have caused amazing dissidence in the Democratic Party. Donors were not going to give money. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to the President of the United States, but have you seen anything? The Vice President of the United States looks like she's about to lose a presidential election. She was campaigning vigorously from the second she got the nomination up until the votes counting today. Is there any evidence on the table that the President of the United States could do half of what she did?
No.
A third of what she did. I mean,
no.
we could go. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean to the President of the United States.
No, and we saw over the last week him calling Trump supporters garbage, et cetera.
Yeah.
Like
I can tell you from my first trip 15 months ago, people were saying, "Where's the president?" I think one of the legacy conversations about this election is not just going to be the switch from Biden, but the 2 years before that.
Yeah.
You would travel and people would say, "Where's the president?" He was invisible because he couldn't do events, and he wasn't talking about his record and his agenda and trying to explain that cost of living stuff, trying to explain that, yeah, it sucks in a lot of places, but look around the world, the United States is actually doing better than most advanced economies. He was missing.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot said and done and told about that. Let's check in with Caitlin Collins, who's at Trump's headquarters, ahead of remarks that were expected by the former president. Caitlin?
Yeah, Jake, just to give you a reality check of where the Trump campaign has been watching this election day play out, they woke up confident this morning that Donald Trump would win this race. But when I was talking to them about what they thought the next few days were going to look like, one, they thought that this would go on for several days. They did not think that the numbers would be as generous as they are, as what the numbers have been coming in, as they have been reported. And they also had counseled Donald Trump that there would likely not be any kind of decision within the next 24 hours or so. Donald Trump himself was frustrated about that and was saying that he wanted to know what the outcome of this race was going to be tonight, and he said, Kristen, that he had not prepared a speech. And obviously we are seeing now the Trump campaign in real time, as we've been talking to them, are adjusting to what they've been watching play out over the last 3 or 4 hours or so.
Yeah, and he's feeling really good. I talked to a number of people who were with him who said that he is ecstatic, that they had already said that they thought he was in a different headspace than when he went into 2020 when he was angry. He's watching those results come in. But as you said, he still couldn't understand why they weren't going to get the results tonight. Now, obviously, we're seeing a lot more of these states being called right now than even his own team anticipated. I was told that they were looking very carefully at Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and they thought that maybe they'd have some idea by tomorrow what those results would look like. But as we're seeing those results coming in, there's so much more of that vote counted in these states than they even anticipated. So clearly that shifted their entire mentality around this, Donald Trump coming here and getting ready to speak.
Well, and so Donald Trump is in the building right now, I should note. We're waiting to hear from him. He has made his way over from Mar-a-Lago, about a 10-minute drive away. And you just think of, I was there at Trump's victory party in 2016 when he first won, and the entire room was shell-shocked after he won Florida, that he had actually won that election. He himself was stunned by winning, and it was kind of this surreal moment to see Trump and his family on stage as he was speaking. Then, of course, we all know what happened 4 years ago when he came out and spoke and declared victory that was not his and never would become his, which belonged to Joe Biden. And so I think the question for a lot of people watching now is what he is going to say tonight as he's going to come out. And the race has obviously not been called yet. What he's going to say when he gets on stage after seeing the numbers that are better than even they were expecting this morning.
Yeah, and we know that their team had not spent a lot of time coming up with any drafts for him. They were going to let Donald Trump speak off the cuff, but they were trying to come up with scenarios in which Donald Trump would not come out early. The difference between now and 2020 is that their internal polling was showing them a lot of these kind of numbers. Maybe not exactly, obviously, as you said, they were even surprised by how generous some of the numbers were, but they did believe they had a real path towards winning, unlike in 2020 when that seemed a lot more uncertain, which meant that Donald Trump went into this in a very different way. So the speech that he gave, obviously, in 2020, declaring victory when he did not win the election, we'll see what he says tonight, because we know that, again, he was in a very different place. The election is in a very different place than when he came out then.
Also, the access of influence around him is so different. Like 4 years ago, Rudy Giuliani was in the White House, intoxicated, according to testimony from other aides who were there, urging Trump to go out and declare victory. He's now down the riser from us this evening. He was not at the Mar-a-Lago event. But Donald Trump was surrounded by Elon Musk, we know, was at Mar-a-Lago tonight. There were photos of him sitting with Donald Trump as he was preparing to come over here. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is there as well, Dana White, Tucker Carlson, there are Donald Trump Jr., obviously Senator J.D. Vance, and those who are now, around him that has changed, including his own campaign managers, Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita.
Yeah, and one of the most interesting things about Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita is they've really managed at times to keep him at bay and protect him from his own instincts. Obviously not all the time. Donald Trump can say and do whatever he wants, and he often does. However, for example, one of the things we saw just over the weekend when he was in Pennsylvania speaking and making incredibly inappropriate and insulting comments was Susie Wiles go stand at the buffer and stare at him. Now, we heard from the campaign that they were saying, oh, he was just trying to wrap him because he was going too long, but there's obviously a lot of questions as to whether or not it was because of timing or because of the fact that everybody knew what he was saying could potentially cost him an election that was such narrow margins. I mean, there was a lot of uproar, even from his allies, calling him afterwards on that, and that is something that Susie Wiles was very aware of. So his orbit has changed in terms of the people he is surrounding himself with, people who try to essentially stop him from his own instincts.
Yeah, and also, I think as they're looking at today and surprise themselves by how the numbers have gone, and some places, obviously they thought North Carolina and Georgia would be a gut check. Kristen Holmes will stay with you. Jake, back to you.
Thank you so much, and we have a major projection. CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a huge achievement for Donald Trump and a huge bucket of electoral votes, 19 of them, for his path back to the presidency. As of right now, with those 19 electoral votes added from Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is within spitting distance of 270 electoral votes. He has 265 electoral votes. Vice President Kamala Harris has 187 electoral votes. 270 are needed to win. John King, Donald Trump is within a hair's breadth of being reelected president.
Yes, he is. And let's just walk over. We'll look at where we are now, 265 to 187. And you're looking at this map. He's leading here. He's leading here. He could get a congressional vote there. There's another one at Maine he could possibly get. But if you just look out here, he is almost certain to get this. The state of Alaska hasn't voted Democrat forever. That would get him to 268. So you're at the point right now, Jake, where pick it, right? Just pick it. That's be one congressional. He could possibly win both in Nebraska. That would get him to 270, assuming he wins Alaska, which I think is a pretty safe bet. Then you just look at the map, right? Unlikely to get any of these over here. He could possibly get an electoral vote out of Maine, but he's leading here, leading here, leading here, and leading there, and he needs two. He needs two. So if he gets that one, and that one, he's way up. And if he keeps holding these, then now that's where he was. When he won, he was at 304, 306. That would be 310. 310 if he sweeps. There's no guarantee he's going to sweep by any means. But he's leading in enough states right now. Plus, there's a couple other congressional districts on the board where he could pass. He could, emphasis on could, pass 310 electoral votes. You come back to where we are now, though. He's just in a commanding position. And let's do the math the other way. Okay, which is what gets interesting, right? This is now red in our count. There we go. That gets Donald Trump there. Here's the challenge when you do the math the other way. You assume that stays for the Republican. Let's just, for the sake of argument, big comeback for the Democrat. Big comeback for the Democrat. Democrat holds New Mexico, holds Minnesota, excuse me for that one, wins Wisconsin, wins Michigan. You see this count? See this count? It's New Jersey. There's Connecticut. There's New Hampshire. Pop it out. What do you want to pick? You want to go state? Well, you could even go statewide. It's not going to happen, but let's say statewide. All right, you do all the Maine, you come back out. What does that get you? All right, so it comes down to this: if she wins everything, if she wins everything. The Pennsylvania is what makes Donald Trump. Again, we're not done until we're done, but Pennsylvania, in every path she had, any reasonable, plausible path to 270, included the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the Vice President of the United States. So you get to a place now where, as you come back over here, you're just looking at this map and you're saying, is she going to win Alaska? No one's going to Vegas on that one. So where is she in any of these? Do you start coming back? Is there any way to come back? 73% of the vote. It's 266,000 votes. Again, let's just look at the live outstanding vote. Let me move this up so you can see it better. Yes, the outstanding vote in Michigan is disproportionately Democratic, but there are a fair amount. See those big red circles? A fair amount of Republican votes out there. We have a 266,000 vote lead and a map that looks like that of what votes out. Again, I don't do impossibles, but I do improbables, and that's improbable. You come over here to Wisconsin, again, 119,000 votes ahead. That's come down a little tiny bit. It has. But it's a state won by 22,000 votes in the last two elections, and Donald Trump is ahead at the moment by 119,000 votes. And so, again, you're looking at what's left. You're at 92%. Sure, the biggest is here, but look at those. Those are modest circles for Republican votes as well. Essentially, in chess, she's blocked. Donald Trump's not across the line yet because we have more states to go through, but she is essentially blocked from getting to 270.
All right, stand by for a projection because CNN can now project that Kamala Harris will get that one electoral vote from Omaha. Nebraska gives its electoral votes according to congressional district. Kamala Harris will get one of them. Donald Trump will get another one of them. Of the five, let's look at the electoral map. Donald Trump now has 266 electoral votes because we just gave him one from Nebraska's, I think, first congressional district. Kamala Harris has 188 because we just gave her one from Nebraska's second congressional district. 270 are needed to win. Donald Trump needs only 4 more electoral votes in order to be the president. Dana?
I mean, Pennsylvania, if you look at those numbers, 266. 4 more. And you just saw the math that John did, the path that the different paths that he put out there for Donald Trump and that for Kamala Harris. And
I'm so
again,
proud.
we're not.
I mean, that map of where she did not perform, the completely grayed out map where she never overperformed Biden more than 3%. That's just rough.
I think there are two stories here. One is the burden that she faced, and to go back to the very beginning of the night when we did the right track, wrong track. 26% of the country thinks that the nation is in the right track. 72% think they're in the wrong track. And when it came to the performance of Joe Biden, it was 41% to approve to 58% disapprove. So she had an enormous burden. And people are unhappy with the way the Biden-Harris administration has run this country for the last 4 years, and she did not succeed. I'm not sure it was possible for her to succeed in somehow positioning herself as an agent of change and distancing herself from Biden. There's another part of the story, though, we got to talk about, which is Donald Trump. The fact is that when you go back to January 6th of 2021 to today, it is an extraordinary comeback. He was a pariah when he left town on January 20th, refused to even go to the inauguration. There was the vast majority of members of his own party wouldn't be seen with him. He, over the course of the 4 years, he proceeds to win himself back into the party, declares right after the tremendous defeat of the Republicans. There was certainly an unsuccessful showing in the midterms in 2022, wins a contested primary, and this is his party. This is these voters.
Not just his party.
What?
It's not just his party now, and that's
No, it's his country.
I mean, again, we have to be careful. We haven't called it yet, but Pennsylvania makes it extremely tough for Kamala Harris, and that's one of the things. I mean, the Trump side of this, one of the most extraordinary dynamics that we didn't necessarily see coming was that there still was a hidden Trump vote. Everybody who, even those who are big supporters of Donald Trump, would tell me, well, now they're loud and proud. People who are MAGA are very open about it, and so on and so forth. Except if you look at just these exit polls across these states and then nationally, there are so many pockets of formerly Democratic sort of coalition voters who have moved in an extraordinary way. I mean, Latino men, an 18-point swing for Donald Trump. He got 18 percentage points more among Latino men than he did in 2020.
Also, the campaign made this concerted effort to go after the never Trump vote, being out there campaigning alongside Liz Cheney, talking about having Republicans in the cabinet. It seems like that did not move people, that is still, in some ways, the never Trump community is kind of a homeless community, and it didn't help Democrats in this conversation in really any of these states. You don't get the sense that there was this vast, as you said, hidden vote that somehow pollsters missed or that people voted in secret. That kind of conversation, it just looks like it didn't pan out.
The fact is that the Trump campaign identified what the majority of Americans, and it appears that for the first time he is going to win the popular vote in addition to the electoral vote, what they cared about. That what they cared about is the fact that a box of cereal costs $9, that with Southern Republican governors shipping illegal immigrants north, that the whole migration issue has become a national issue, that you feel it in New York and Illinois and a bunch of northern states. The transgender issue was you know, this version of the cultural wars. And, you know, people were surprised at the fact that he spent more money on the transgender issue than he did on the economy or immigration in terms of advertising. And it obviously seems to have worked like gangbusters. So he really identified what the concerns of the majority of Americans was, and he played to it. And she faced this overwhelming burden that people just didn't like the direction of the country as it stood now after 4 years of Biden and Harris.
Yeah, well, and you know, the big term of 2024, Anderson, is the manosphere, and we're all living in the manosphere now.
Dana, let's talk about some of, I mean, mistakes that were made, things that weren't looked at, or, I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of finger pointing, there's going to be a lot of navel gazing. What stands out to you?
I mean, listen, I'm still convinced that Kamala Harris performed better than Joe Biden would have tonight. I just think that there were so many of us, even those of us who didn't like Donald Trump, who after the debate performance couldn't in good conscience vote for Joe Biden for 4 more years. But there were